we've finished reading of Mice and Men, we're going to go back and we're going to learn about allusions. And we're also going to read a poem. And so you're going to see how this poem becomes an allusion for, or became an allusion for, of Mice and Men. So first, the definition of allusion. An allusion is an expression designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly or straight out or directly. It's an indirect or passing reference. And here's why authors do use allusions. When an author or a person refers to something that most people would be familiar with, they do so to provide deeper meaning. When their audience knows the allusion, it saves them time so they don't have to explain the situation or idea to them. So here's some examples. If an audience doesn't know an allusion, they have two choices. They can be lost and ignore the allusion, or they can persevere and try to figure out what the allusion is and how it provides deeper meaning to what it is that they're reading or listening to. So authors commonly refer to allusions in Shakespeare, sometimes religious books or pop culture, like they'll refer to a person or a song or a phrase, or comics or movies, politics, law, etc. And all of those are again meant to help to explain a situation or idea without having to actually explicitly state what that idea is. Here are some examples of two artists who used allusions in their songs. So Taylor Swift, in her song Love Story, has the line that you were Romeo, you were throwing pebbles, and my daddy said stay away from Juliet. The reason why this song is an example of an allusion is because it relates to the story of Romeo and Juliet from Shakespeare, and it relates it to her own personal love life. She's relating how her Romeo had to sneak in a visit in order to be able to see her, since her father, whom portrays Lord Capulet in the song, forbids him to go anywhere near her. If you've ever read Romeo and Juliet, that's exactly what the story is about. Also, One Direction has a song called One Thing, and they have the line, shot me out of the sky, you're my kryptonite, you keep me making me weak, yeah, frozen, can't speak. And the reason why this song is an example of allusion is because they relate to how one girl can be their very own kryptonite. And those of you who are comic book fans know that kryptonite is known to be the greatest weakness of Superman. And so in this song, One Direction relates their love toward a girl to kryptonite, since to them she is their greatest weakness and nothing else. So that's an example of how in popular culture or in music, people might use an allusion. Now let's talk about allusion in Mice and Men. Steinbeck's title is Of Mice and Men, and it is an allusion to a poem called To a Mouse by Robert Burns. Steinbeck deliberately used aspects of the poem we're about to read as a reference in his own novella. This is called an allusion. So without reading the poem on the next page and only considering the titles Of Mice and Men and To a Mouse, what do you think his references might be about? Go ahead and type your answer here. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at the poem itself, To a Mouse by Robert Burns. What you're going to do is you're going to read the modern translation of the poem To a Mouse by Robert Burns. That's this part in blue. The one that is really difficult to read is the original poem in 1785, but I thought it would be interesting to just take a look at it if you are interested in seeing what the original language stated. Words like timorous beastie instead become timid beast. So this is the one that's more easy to understand. So we'll be reading the one in blue, which is the modern translation. Then you're going to look at each stanza of the poem To a Mouse and answer the accompanying questions listed for each stanza. First, you'll be describing the mouse's experience and then comparing the mouse to Lenny from Of Mice and Men. So let's read the first stanza and I'll show you how I answered the questions. Little artful, cowering, timid beast, oh, what a panic is in your heart. You need not start away so hasty with bickering prattle. I would be loath to run and chase you with murdering scraper. Now, some of these words may not be familiar to you, like bickering prattle or murdering scraper. If you aren't sure about a word, go ahead and look it up because it will help you with understanding. But basically, he's saying that this small little scared beast is always running around with panic in his heart and runs away all the time, making little noises. And he's saying, I would be loath, like I wouldn't run and chase you with murdering scraper. He's trying to assure them that he wouldn't. So the question is, how is the mouse described? This column will always be about the mouse itself and the poem, and this one will always be about Lenny and Of Mice and Men, these questions. So how is the mouse described? I said that the mouse is described as small and always afraid and running away. The question over here is, how is the description of the mouse similar to or different from Lenny? So first I chose to talk about what's similar. Lenny is similar because he always seems to be afraid of making a mistake and letting down George. He's also described as a beast, like the mouse. But Lenny is different because he is not little, like the mouse. Then I go on to the next stanza. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes you startle at me, you poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. The question is, how has man treated the mouse? This is like collective man, all of mankind, treated the mouse. And how does the speaker or narrator feel about this? Because it says, I'm truly sorry, man's dominion, that means like to be in charge of, has broken nature's social union. In other words, we can no longer be friends because I'm always trying to rule over you. That it seems like it justifies the ill opinion which makes you startle. So in other words, you don't trust men and it makes you run away, just like they described in the first stanza. And he says, it makes you startle at me, you poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. In the end, he sympathizes with him and he realizes that this really isn't very fair and tries to reassure the mouse. So how is he treating the mouse and how does the speaker feel about it? I said, man has not treated mice well and has asserted their dominance over mice. The narrator feels bad about that and understands why the mouse would be afraid. Now let's compare that to compare Lenny and the mouse's relationship with people. Which character in the book expresses emotions like the speaker? Well, first of all, I think Lenny has a similar relationship with other people at the ranch who treat him as inferior. This should say treat him as inferior. George, Slim, and Candy are the only characters who seem to feel bad about the way others treat Lenny. So then what you're going to do is you're going to read the next stanza. I'll go ahead and read it and talk it out loud, but then you're going to type in your answer here. Notice I already have it italicized and in blue so that it's very clear which parts are your answers and which part of the question. So the next stanza says, I doubt not sometimes that you may steal. What then? Poor beast, you must live. An odd ear and 24 sheaves, it is a small request. I will get a blessing with what is left and never miss it. So what does the mouse do that might seem wrong? And why does the mouse do it? So let's read it again. It says, I doubt not sometimes that you may steal. So the mouse steals. And why? Because he has to live. Okay, and he even says, the author says, or the narrator says, it's fine. He says, with 24 sheaves, it's a tiny request. And I am happy with whatever is left. I won't miss what you take. Now, the question here is more about inference. How do Lenny's wrongful actions compare to those of the mouse? So here is how you would describe what it is that he does wrong. Killing of mice, killing of the puppy, eventually killing of Curly's wife. How are those in comparison to stealing? So you'll put your opinion there. Then we go on, I'll read one more with you. Your small house, too, in ruin. Its feeble walls the winds are scattering, and nothing now to build a new one. Of course, green foliage and bleak winter's winds coming, both bitter and piercing. The question is, what is the mouse's living conditions, and what do the changing seasons symbolize? So we see the house is small and in ruin, and the walls and the winds, its feeble walls and the winds are scattering. So it means that if it blows too much, the walls will blow away. So what are the mouse's living conditions? They don't seem to be very good because they have walls that blow away with the wind. And nothing now to build a new one, of course, green foliage and a bleak winter's winds coming, both bitter and piercing. So what do the changing seasons symbolize? What do you think that they symbolize? So I want you to think about, first of all, they go away and they have green foliage and then they have winter winds coming. What is going to happen to this mouse's house with the changing season? And the next question is, how related to this is, how do the living conditions and the season in the poem reference Lenny's environment? So what kind of people is Lenny surrounded by? What kind of situation does he find himself in on a constant, every single day during his life? Then you're going to go on and you're going to read the other couple stanzas It goes, there's 8 stanzas total. I read the first 4 with you, and so you're going to read the last 4 and answer the questions, and then you will turn this in. We will be discussing certain parts of this poem when we come together. I want you especially to pay attention to the parts in the poem that actually are referenced in the book. If you look at and spend a lot of time on stanza 7, then that would be very helpful, because we will be definitely talking that part of it because it's a direct reference to the title. If you have any questions, certainly let me know, but make sure that you have this assignment complete before you come to class on the next time. Have a nice night.